Just see that it's muted in the corner, which, there you go.
Technology company, reiterate.
Now the recording will have your voice on it, not just your beautiful face.
You know what's nice? So a lot of you guys know that I have an identical twin. Well, actually not a lot of you in this room, but
I know.
I have an identical twin. Hey, and it is a trip for people because, and I love it because when we were kids, I was like, oh my God, I'm only stop. But now I'm just like, do you know who I am?
What's your twin's name?
Lee, and they work in the cannabis industry. And I was a cop for 12 years. So it was a ton of fun. I got drug tested a lot. And I still did, I'm like, I still don't smoke weed, guys, huh? Anyway, so it was just fun for me. But when you hear your voice, a lot of times, like after as it's being recorded, that's usually when you're like, oh, but I've always known what my voice kind of sounds like because my twin has always annoyed me. So I've always known, I was like, because we do sound very, very similar, so.
I'm sure do. You even have the same like way you say things.
Mannerisms, and it's a trip for people. So anyway, okay, so my name's Elise. I've been with Keller Williams. This is I'm almost in the year 9 of doing real estate. As I just said, I was a law enforcement officer before that, so negotiating was kind of a thing back then too, but it was more like, how do I talk this 6'4" man who's drunk into kindly turning around and putting his hands behind his back? You know, that was definitely a thing for me where I was like, sir, kind of sort of under arrest a little bit, so if you could just like spin. It was a lot of fun, but I bring a lot of that into this realm, the nice parts of it. I don't slam people up against like the cars or anything anymore, but sometimes I would like to, especially during the inspection period. I think inspection period is really where you have your time to shine for your negotiations, any tactics that you want to bring to the table. So how to speak to people, your mannerisms, making sure you're not doing everything over text. Texting and negotiating is just not a great idea. There's ways to do it, and sometimes you can utilize that as a tool, but there are other times where you need to make that phone call and you need to have that tone in your voice, or you need to come from a place of grace and saying like, hey, we're not trying to pull one over on the seller. These are the things that we think are fair and some of the items that we think need to be addressed for safety issues. So there's all kinds of things you can bring from just having a regular rhetoric with different agents, making sure you have a good relationship with agents. You may have a bad transaction with an agent or with certain clients, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to work with that agent again. So you always have to make sure that that's in the back of your mind and that you're always making sure you're trying to come from contribution and always giving something in return. If someone's coming to you and they're really banging their head against the cell phone, trying to get you to see their point of view, but you have to negotiate on behalf of your clients, how do you make sure that they don't get frustrated with you as a person and don't take it personal? So when you're negotiating or when you're talking about the inspection period, where would you think that the first time the inspection notice and inspection conversation should come up? When during the transaction do you think that should happen? This is where I'm going to call on people, and I'm really sorry.
God, I knew it.
I know, I'm like, you're just a softball hit for me because
Right.
I know you.
When you're having a conversation with your client or in general?
In general,
From the very beginning.
yes.
When it comes to my buyers, I do it at the buyers consults and I go over them of the step-by-step process and what inspections mean.
Yes.
And that they will get sometimes a 600-page inspection notice, but I will call them and we will go through it and we will have a conversation with that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly when you need to bring it up the very first time. The first time you sit down and meet with your client for that buyer's consultation, you need to start talking about the inspection and that they're not going to be asking for a doorstop. They're not going to be asking
Big ticket items.
big ticket items only. The HVAC does not work properly and it's winter. Probably going to want to make sure that you have heat. The roof is leaking. There's issues with the roof. The roof is 15 years old. Something to keep in mind when you have a roof that's a lot older, your insurance rates for your clients, they're going to be higher. So their monthly payment is going to be higher. A lot of times lenders will try and get an estimate that they'll consider to be conservative, but they hope that they can bring it down for an estimate. But if you've got something that's got a 20-year-old roof, that roof is likely not going to have coverage. And if it does have coverage, it's not gonna be much and it's not gonna be cheap. So those are things to keep in mind. You're gonna have to know as you go to each home, are you going and showing them a home that they are so excited about because they love the way the ceilings are, they love the colors, they love the flooring, but you're walking through it and you're like, that is DIY to the max. Like you're seeing where there's the cut angles of the trim don't meet up. You're seeing that there's paint on the ceilings along the edges. This is not professional contractor work, so it's not contractor grade. So it's just, I found this home, I want to sell it for as much money as possible, so I threw light gray on the walls and white trim. That's not making sure that your client is getting into something that would otherwise be known as a shit show. So we have to make sure that we're protecting them from the very beginning as we're walking through each property that we go and show them. So setting the expectation of what to ask for is probably one of the best tips and tricks that I can give you. When do you start negotiating your inspection and your inspection notice with the listing agent? When does that begin? Sarah?
That would be about the time that I tell them I have an offer for them.
I don't know why I'm teaching this class. I don't know why I'm here. This is fantastic. This is awesome. So, and the biggest thing and the biggest tip that I can give you is just listen. If you are not in a multiple offer situation, or if you are, you can come at your offer from several different angles. If you give a really great, clean offer, I'm talking 0 property data days, even $200 of earnest money, that's showing something over $0, $100. I mean, it's not much, and they'll probably sometimes don't do that too, because you're like, oh, well, you're offering earnest money. We want a minimum of 500. So just make sure you're having an open conversation. You're saying, this is what we're willing to do. 0 property data, limitation of inspection rights, 15 days or 10 days for the inspection notice. And you're putting in, we don't want the fridge. We don't want the washer and dryer. Those things, so that way they see, hey, we're not asking for over the top things. If you write that offer and it's aggressive, sometimes your clients might be impressed, but you're not setting yourself up for success in the inspection period. So in the inspection period, now we've gotten our inspection report back. We've already told the clients what to expect. It's good to meet them at the inspection, at the end of the inspection. Don't waste your time being there the entire time. All you're gonna do is get in the way of the inspector and just stare at them, and it's awkward. Because you're just sitting there and you're like, so how was that crawl space? Cool. And he's like, well, I'll tell you in a minute, I'm trying to get this done so I can go to my next one, but I gotta check the electrical and then I gotta get into the attic. They're like, cool, how was that attic? And then you've got your buyers and they're showing up, they're like, oh, he's in the attic, I'm gonna going to. That sucks, because then you're like, does my E&O insurance cover him falling through the ceiling? No, it doesn't, so don't do it. Don't let him do it. I mean, if he's, it's good luck, especially if the dad showed up. That sucks.
Oh, God.
Has anyone ever had a dad show up to the inspection?
I have them there.
That's always a travesty for me. I'm like, okay, welcome, sir. Why don't we just write the mutual release now? Why are we here? What are we doing here? This is just a waste of time for everyone. Pay the man, let's go. So.
Well, and I usually have them, I've talked to a couple of my inspectors that will have a conversation with my clients after the inspection's
Yes.
over. So we don't even meet at the house necessarily. We just
Have them call.
have them call and we have like
These
a
are the
little
things.
3-way phone call. And that way and I just tell them like, look, he's gonna be doing his thing. If we're following him around, he's not looking at what he needs to look at. He's
Right.
talking to us and trying to make sure we're
And
okay.
this is no offense to, the one gentleman in the room, sorry, to do this. Men cannot multitask. They cannot. And so if you interrupt an inspector, he's not gonna be continuing to go around the house checking the windows. He's gonna be like, oh, I'm checking this window, let me shut it. Let me address you and your question, because he's
Yeah.
respectful and polite. Isn't that great? Cool, let's go. I'm a high D personality. Check the windows.
Yeah.
Stop asking the questions. You're probably different. I don't know. I'm sure you're different. You seem like such a gentleman. Anyway, okay, so once you're, hopefully all of that information is getting passed along at the appropriate times, not during the inspection, because that's when they start to, you mean there's mold? How much? Why don't you wait for the inspection report, homie? Wait
Yeah.
for the inspection report. You know what's gonna be in there? Photos, a description. Just let the inspector do his thing. He's gonna do a great job telling you what's there. I get on a little tangent. But that kind of takes me to this next part of my notes where it says, get a solid relationship with a home inspector. There's a lot of home inspectors. There's some new home inspectors. There's some very specific home inspectors that will like, this is loose. Gonna have to take a picture of it. You know, those are things, that's what they feel like is their job. So they're gonna do their due diligence that they believe is the right amount. If you find someone that's that like sweet middle of the road, that's the person, I would say, find an inspector that you want to inspect your home when you go to buy. If you have someone where you're like, you're gonna sell your personal home, but you don't want your inspector to inspect your personal home when you're listing it, that's probably a problem. That might not be the realistic person to actually use all the time and have that relationship with. Just so when you have an inspector that's doomsdaying, I call them the doomsdayers, but they're also now giving something called an opinion in the inspection. That is not their job. And in my opinion, that is not their job.
It's not their
My opinion is, and they put me up here to teach the class, so here's my opinion. If they're telling how to make the repair in the report, you probably need to look at finding a different home inspector. And I will die on that hill. That is because I have had deals killed over how an inspector feels like something needs to be repaired. And I don't think that that's realistic. Let's leave it up to the professionals and the specialists to do their job and give their recommendations, which could be much more expensive or significantly less expensive. But let's make sure that we leave that up to the actual trained professionals that know what they're doing for your HVAC, your foundation work and things like that. Always have a really solid relationship with your home inspector. If you give them a lot of business, they will treat you well and they will make sure that your clients know the best avenue to take. So those are some of the things that I recommend on that. Do you guys have any questions about home inspectors, how to choose them, how to stay away from certain ones? Okay, let's talk about when you get a shit show of an inspection.
Oh, God.
Those are fun, my favorites. So then you've got people, so now as the listing side, because I primarily work on listings. If I have an agent and I see this agent is like, I'm sorry, we're gonna be asking for a lot of things. I always have the same tone. Hey, it's no big deal. If it's something that needs to be fixed, we're gonna take care of it. Let me make sure, I wanna make sure your client feels comfortable and I wanna make sure you feel comfortable knowing that we're gonna take care of this property as best we can. Your job is to make sure that you sell this home for the most money, you negotiate in the best way for your client. Sometimes making sure that your seller makes a repair is what's best for them. So sometimes you have to guide them to spend that money. Because then if they're like, I'm not gonna take care of termites, it's like, I'm sorry. Do you wanna continue to live in this home with termites? Are you gonna name them? Are they your pets now? No? Cool. You're gonna wanna take care of them because they're gonna continue to damage your house. So let's remediate the problem and let's do the right thing. Otherwise, you have to disclose that you're cool with living with all of your new friends that you just found out about that are now eating your subfloor and your joists. It's gonna be great. You're not gonna sell that house. Nobody will. So, or an investor will. Zach Riggs, give him a call. You can have both sides of the transaction. He'll give you all 6%. But he does that because he's gonna make a really low offer. Sorry, Zach, if you're watching this. And you have
Permission to use his name.
I have permission to use his name because also, by the way, call Zach Riggs if you have a property that you need to get rid of very quickly. You're welcome. Okay, guiding them and making sure that they know the severity of a repair that's necessary is also extremely important. If there's mildew and mold, it has to be remediated. That's just something that needs to be done. Anybody who's gonna wanna buy a property is gonna wanna have that done. And then when you go to put it back on the MLS because your seller's like, it's the point of the matter. I hate that. I hate that. I have dealt with those guys and I have also learned on YouTube how to fix a microwave. Several ways to fix some issues. They're super easy, but I went over to his house, fixed it, had a lovely conversation with his wife, and he still did not want to sign the inspection notice saying that it was fixed because he said, no, it's the principle of the matter. And I'm like, well, the principle of the matter is I already sent the listing agent or the buyer's agent a video of it working. So even if you don't sign it, they're still gonna be cool with it. So you just have to make sure if you have someone who's just really strong personality, super boneheaded, he's a nice guy, but man, it's just, you have to be able to work with every single personality. So you as an agent need to be a chameleon in that way. You have to mirror and matching. We learned that in Ignite and Bold and all kinds of other trainings that we have across the real estate board, not just with Keller Williams. You have to make sure that if your people do business with people they like. So if I like you, but you talk a certain way, I speak slowly. And this person speaks rapidly quick. I know I need to probably increase my cadence because otherwise they're gonna get annoyed with the way I talk. I am obviously not a slow talker, by the way. I think that's clear. But I also know that I have to take myself down and I have to meet them where they're at. So that way they feel comfortable talking to me. Because you can get a client that even though they're signed, you've had great customer service, if there's just something where they're just like, you can annoy them or they can start to dislike you. But you're under contract. Now they don't want to deal with you or the other side. So make sure that you're always doing the best that you can possibly do. Stay on their good side, but make sure you're guiding them in the true and right fashion. So make sure that you're having open conversation, update them constantly because they are so anxious, I promise. They are anxious to know what repairs are going to be needed to be done. So having those conversations and hey, I know the inspection was yesterday. I just want to let you know, I spoke to the agent. They still haven't compiled their list yet. Once I have that, I will let you know. Even just something like that is vital to continue to have a good relationship with your client. So when you get someone who comes to you and they've got the other agent is stressed, remember, take the tone, make sure that you set a really good conversation tone with them and say things like, hey, I understand that your client may be nervous. If there's things that have to be fixed, we are going to be, as long as they're reasonable requests. Reasonable to me, reasonable to you, could be two very drastically different things. Reasonable to me, reasonable to my seller, likely extremely drastically different things. But you have some sellers, don't put too much doubt on them. There are some people that, yeah, that roof is pretty old. We probably should start getting some quotes to replace it. And you're like, oh, okay, great. We had an inspection recently that came in and I was going through the list. If I was going through the inspection, noting things that I'm like, yeah, this probably will need to be addressed. Yes, this probably needs to be addressed. And then I get to electrical and I see Federal Pacific panel. And I'm like, all of that shit doesn't matter before. Nothing matters before because those are tiny items compared to this big fire hazard. That could be a potential problem for the safety of the house, the safety of the clients. The person who currently lives there may have no idea that they're living with a panel that is no longer legal to install. No parts you can't replace parts on those panels either because they don't make them anymore because it's such a dangerous thing to have in a home. So I'm like, okay, let's look at the big ticket items. Roof, good. HVAC, great. No issues in the crawl space, solid. Let's make sure we ask for this full replacement of the panel. I knew it was going to be several $1,000s. The agent I was talking to on the other side knew her. Never came up against the Federal Pacific panel. So I had to educate him. Once I gave him that piece of education, he could then go back to his client. And I was basically saying, I want you to know there are several other things that we were going to ask for. As soon as we realized there was a Federal Pacific panel, nothing else became a priority except this. So we only want what we think is absolutely necessary for safety. And that went a very, very long way. We ended up having a great conversation. They ended up doing one more thing in addition for us. They replaced a bunch of GFCI outlets, but they already had an electrician coming over to do a bunch of work. So for that, I was like, that makes the most sense, I think, for everybody. The seller was not happy about the amount of money that it cost, but at the end of the day, we only asked for one when we still had several other things that we could have asked for. Has anyone else had a Federal Pacific panel that they've seen or come across?
No, I want you to tell me more about this.
Okay.
I'm like, what is a Federal Pacific panel? Do I have one?
Can you show her the TikTok video?
Oh, I should, I'll post the TikTok video later.
Okay.
Too.
Yeah.
There's a TikTok video from a home inspector. I don't know where he's from, but he gives kind of an idea of it. So I think it's 1,200 fires per year annually that across the United States that with these panels. So 12. So
How do you know that it's a Federal? Does it say that?
So if it doesn't say, it looks different.
Old.
If it's not one of those where it's like the brown ones, they're very tiny.
Federal
like yeah, you'll see several,
I was
those.
just saying, like, I'm seeing pictures, but it looks just like my breaker box, so now I'm worried.
They have a great training.
I'm literally stressing over here. and I'm like,
Everyone's like, do I have a federal panel? If it looks like a regular breaker box, you don't.
Okay.
If it looks different, if it's they're very unique looking. So there's a different style of panel for sure. And so Google it. You guys will be fine probably. Anyway, make sure if you've come across, they're becoming more and more rare. That is one version, yes. That is one version. The breakers are a lot smaller, and they don't always trip. And so that overheats, causes a fire. I think there's about a dozen deaths per year in the United States from this, and there's at least 1,200 fires a year on average.
I
So
wish you hadn't told us, because now we know.
you're welcome. Like, it's a huge deal.
It's
It is.
between 1960 and
I've
1985.
had clients that have had these and they refuse to replace them. And I'm just like, that's fine, as long as you know
That you can die from this fire.
that.
it's in my son's room. I gotta go.
Stop it.
Are you serious?
Stop it. I'm like, oh, she actually left. I will never be
Wait, are
asked
you
to do a
serious?
training again.
I don't know that it's that kind of panel, but it is in his room.
Whatever the panel is in his room, whether it's his or not.
If it's in a bedroom, I don't
like,
think,
I could
those
see her being
panels
like,
that are in bedrooms inside dwellings, unless you've done several additions to the home, it's very unlikely because these were installed, I think, in the 80s and 90s.
Oh,
Could have been a little bit earlier, like it's some 70s potentially, so check it. Sorry, derailing, guys.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get back on.
So now I'm gonna send you
Yeah.
a picture of our panels.
Well,
And I'll be like.
Google.
Is
this what- is this
on
what-
it?
Yeah,
It
it should have the
name.
class temperature. It should have the name on it.
And it says Federal
He
Pacific.
did. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it was. And he even mentioned in his
Did they not
report
make
that it
them
was a
anymore?
Federal
Oh,
Pacific
no.
and it needed to be.
No, they're not in production.
They're being sold on eBay though.
How much does that
They're
cost?
being sold on eBay because nobody can get replacement parts because they don't manufacture them anymore.
How much does it cost to get all that replaced?
Every home is different. I am not going on camera saying a damn thing. Mm-mm.
We did it.
Inspectors will call it
Huh?
out.
Average?
Any average cost that it would take to replace a panel.
Very political.
I can
Thank
tell
you.
you that we did a one-bedroom house and it cost us $2,500. That's just my personal experience with one home, and I assume it's going to be more than that if you have more outlets.
My client
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get back on my tab.
Yeah, sorry, we threw you way off there, and I'm like, what's this?
Wait, can I ask one more question though? So you're saying an inspector will recognize this and call it out?
And if they don't, get a new inspector.
The new inspector.
If they don't get a new inspector right away. Because if they did not call out a Federal Pacific panel, then they have no business being.
Because
a
I've
home
never even
inspector.
heard of this over a lot of transactions.
Yeah.
So I've done a couple hundred transactions by now.
Yeah,
I've probably had 5.
okay.
So. Feel
So,
better.
yeah, I mean, it's not, it's so, why didn't I start with that?
It's just like a good example.
The sky is falling.
I know, I'm like, look what I did. Never again, all right. Nicole is gonna be like, hey, can you teach this next class? I'm like, no. Never.
Well, I know fuse box versus breaker box, I usually ask for fuses to be replaced for the breakers.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah, and so if you were to ask for a fuse panel to be replaced by a breaker panel, it will be replaced with something that is up to code, which is not Federal Pacific. Okay, cool.
That's good to know.
Moving on. Okay, so the conversation that you have with the other side, as the listing agent or as the buyer side, because I've actually done this quite a bit. This is one of my, when I talk to someone and we're setting up the expectation, we set it up with the buyer, we set it up with the seller. I set it up with the seller when I'm walking through their home doing the listing presentation. And I say things like, hey, I'm gonna make kind of a checklist of things that I'm like, this will get called out. And this is something that needs to be fixed. It's better to fix it on the front end. If you have a client that doesn't have the money to spend, you can have a really good relationship with a contractor. That's fine with getting paid at closing, or at least after 90 days, you make sure that he gets paid, whether the house is closed or not. That's what I recommend. Make sure you have someone in your back pocket that will take payment at closing. Get a home warranty. There is a CHOSA. They've got a lot of really great programs for listings to help you guys out and to help your sellers out.
Free for the listing side completely,
Yep.
even if you make a claim.
Exactly. That's really nice, especially when you have a laundry room that's covered in water right now. So
Mm.
that's my fault. I literally did that today. It's fine. It's a long story. We'll get to that. So, okay, when you're talking to the other side, and I'm having a conversation as the buyer's agent to the listing agent, a lot of times what I'll do is I just listen. I'll ask certain questions, have the conversation go. If I'm hearing them and they're just like, they're really excited, they've already got their next home
Mhm.
under contract. They're about to close on that home. They don't need to sell this home to get that home. I know now that they have 2 mortgages. So there's certain aspects of certain conversations as the listing side, just shut your mouth. As the buyer side, also shut your mouth. Don't give anything up. Sometimes you think these are casual conversations. I love casual conversations. I want you to be casual with me because I am a very casual conversationalist. So let's just chat. How are your clients? Are they stressed? Oh, we'll make it super easy. We'll make it a really great process for them. Oh, good. I know they are so stressed to the max, but they're gonna love working with you. I know, you're right. But also I know that if you continue to have this type of conversation with me, you're gonna divulge information that's probably not in your client's best interest.
Mhm.
It's not that I'm trying to necessarily get information, but if you do give me information, I will use it. And I will keep it. And I'll bring it back up 2 weeks later, because I am a woman. And that's hard fight. Sorry, dude. You are so screwed. So,
Let
anyway.
her fight like a girl.
Yeah. So, my wife, thank God, she doesn't come to these. For me, not her. So she's great. She's fun to negotiate with, not at all. She wins every negotiation. So she's just wins. But anyway, so back to the conversation. When I talk to people, when I have these conversations, if I have a conversation with the buyer side, yeah, they're really happy. They love this house. I've been showing them homes for 1 whole year. Awesome. Have you gone under contract before? Yeah, a handful of times. Well, what happened? Well, the inspections. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. What were some of the big ticket items, or what were some of the things that, well, it just didn't feel like the seller was being fair? Is there something consistent that they asked for that the seller didn't do? No, they asked for a lot, but the seller wouldn't do all of them. It's like, oh, great. Hopefully we're not already under contract. Because now I know when I go to tell my buyer or my sellers, hey, we need to really know that these people are going to ask for a lot. They're probably going to expect everything being done. So that's also a time where I go to that agent and say, can you try and set the expectation now that if this comes back and it's only got $5,000 or less, $2,000 or less of things that need to be done, can you tell them that that's reasonable? Make sure that they're aware of that. If they're not, and I'm working with an agent that I don't have faith in, then I know that our negotiations are going to be a little bit tighter. They're not going to be, I'm going to have a better expectation or a better understanding of what to expect from their side. They're going to be demanding and we're going to have to deal with it, basically. Sometimes we can get away from that. Sometimes we can get some better tactics going. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing to do is always have a really open line of communication. If the other agent, no matter if it's the buyer or seller side, starts stressing, starts taking things personal, it's not their house, they're just listing it. But if it is their house, then maybe they should know that should have cleaned your vents better. I don't know. Should have dealt with your furnace, should have changed your filters, should have kept up with the property. If it's a property that you know when you were walking through it, look at the air returns. I always tell people, look at the air returns. When you're walking through the house and you see that it has got an inch of dust on it, they do not care for their home the way that most people probably say they do. So what else are they not doing? They probably made their home very presentable for the market, but have they been actually taking care of their home? Those are the type of things to look for. If you open the laundry door, or not the laundry door, the door that leads to the water heater, a lot of times there's a vent that goes straight down to the crawl space. Do you open that door and you get hit in the face with this musty smell? Be prepared for that. As the sell side too, say, hey, it smells really moldy and it feels humid when I'm in this area of the house. Go ahead, you can say like, hey, just be prepared. I'm not saying go get it inspected, because now we have to disclose mildew and mold. So you have to disclose it or you have to remediate it. So make sure that they're prepared for all angles of that. Okay. Have I said anything that's like confusing or anything? Sometimes I go off on this tangent and then over here. So just Follow me, people. Don't follow me too long. You will get lost. Conversations. This is what I told you. This is gonna be mediocre. It's not gonna be great. Oh, appraisals. Some buyers, especially if they're FHA, USDA, or VA, they're like, I don't need an inspection. I'll just have the appraisal. The appraiser will take, the appraisal is not an inspection. You are gonna find out more of the things that need to be done on the home and the well-being of the home and how well it was kept during an inspection. An appraiser is just there to find safety concerns. That's it. So an appraisal and the check mark, because the appraiser is gonna go in, show up, and it's just a check mark. So is this done? Is this done? Is this done? That's all they do. They don't go into places. They don't like unscrew access to places. So you're not gonna get any information like you otherwise should with a home inspection. So if someone's like, I don't wanna have a home inspection, that is like the worst possible thing to have a buyer like ever say, I'm good. Don't get mad at me when you find out that your house is falling down. Don't get mad at me because the floor squeaks and you don't think it's a big deal because it's normally not, Carrie. It's normally not. Saw that post. But are there shim issues? That's all gonna be stated in the actual inspection though. If it's a floor that has a creak to it, that's fine. That's not that big of a deal. If you go in and it's got a ton of creaking to it and all of the foundation posts and pillars are on the side and they're not actually underneath any of the beams, okay, that's different.
Right.
But you're not gonna call out a floor that's squeaky. You're gonna say, hey, the foundation and the structure needs to be maintained and kept. And those are the repairs you're gonna be asking for. So an appraisal is not an inspection. That's like one of my last points. I wanna hit that home. So some conversations I have had with sellers agents. I've been on the phone with them and they're like, okay, we got about $2,000 set aside for repairs. So, we've probably got enough to cover whatever repairs you find in the inspection. And I'm like, I'm gonna use every penny. Why did you tell me that? I'm gonna use every dime that you just stated was set aside, or even go over because it's only $100 more. It's only $150 more. Come on, you can do that. Just $150 more. Like, I'm gonna utilize every dime that you stated. So don't do that. If you're the buy side, don't say they are so desperate to get into this home. Their mom lives next door. Their mom lives across the street. They will do anything to live here. What did you just tell me?
And we can turn down any inspection notice you send me.
Sounds like this deal is going to closing and I'm just waiting for the appraisal. You think you're sending me an inspection notice. I know that you're sending me something that says a bunch of fluff because we don't have to do it. Although again, I will still advise my clients, do the right things. Termites, mildew, mold, your Federal Pacific panel, is gonna blow this house up. Do the right things, because otherwise now you're gonna have a disclosure issue if something does happen to their financing and they can't purchase it because of a situation, not because of a want. Does that all make sense? Cool. Questions?
Now I'll give you one that has vexed me and maybe you have a better way of handling it than I do. You're on the listing side.
Mhm.
You got a buyer's agent who's been in the business forever. They know what they're doing. They send you their inspection notice and it says, all of the, the outlet things, the screws all have to be facing the same direction. That was one I got. You gotta have door stops. We need to have you replace the back door with a fireproof door, whatever,
Okay.
in the garage, you feel like, okay, fine,
Go back to request one. So last I checked, you
Yes.
have a screwdriver probably, don't you, buyer's agent?
yeah.
I would recommend you take some time out of your day and go and you can do it your damn self. Thanks for calling though.
But yeah, I got like 17 items, and this has happened more than once, where you get 17 items, and there are a couple of them we look at and we go, yeah, we've got a leak on the hot water heater we need to address, we didn't realize was there, is under the house, whatever, you've got something else. We'll take care of these items, no problem. And they're like, no, but you don't understand. Our fancy inspector we got told us his opinion that these things had to be fixed because this was a major issue. And you're like, but it's not. Like, you can hire a specialist if you'd like,
Right.
and give us a
Ooh.
specialist report,
Thank you. Here we go. Specialists.
which is what I usually say is I'd like to see a specialist report on that.
You have 5 extra days to do that. Go
You
ahead.
do,
You
yeah.
have 5 extra days.
And they're like, no, no,
I've
ours
also
is
had
good
people-
for us.
I've also had people say, I've gone to a buyer's agent and I'm like, you can rescind this. This never happened. I never got this. I mean, I got it, but I'm telling you, like, this is not your inspection notice. This inspection notice is no good.
Yeah.
Take it back. I don't want it. It's gross. It doesn't say the things. But it should say things like, we had a specialist come out and determine that this needs to be done.
And a copy of that report.
You have 5 days. Come back to me in 5 days. I will call my seller and tell them that you guys still need some time. But I'm not gonna go to my seller and be like, so check out what this dumbass did. Like, I'm not gonna say things like that because I still want compliance from them. Because even like I represent them, but if I put personal tones from my opinion in their head, that's not me being a professional agent. That's me being like, sup friend, yo, let me tell you about this dummy. Like, you don't want, like, even, it doesn't, that's not how you can, conducting business in that way. I've had friends that I have done that. I have called them and been like, this agent is just fun to work with. But I think I can talk to them about things because they are my friends. But what I'm doing is I'm creating chaos and havoc in their household because now I get off the phone with my buddy and I'm like, "Pff, cool. And I go about my day and I just wrecked their day. Now their day is ruined. Their week is like up in arms because of what they've just heard. And they think something's really, really wrong. And that I can't believe we're working with, of course, we got the most incompetent agent to work on the buy side. Like, how are we gonna get through this? Now I've done something wrong. And then I'm like, oh, now I'm scrambling to make up ground. Oh, they asked for this, this, and this. Well, fuck them. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? So it's about setting expectations too. So if you have someone, I've had notices that they're like, we want you to inspect this. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. That was your job. If you want the HVAC, you want me and my clients to get the HVAC inspected. You want us to do that because you know that's not a free inspection, that costs an hourly. And so
Well, I've even
now you
said-
want us to do it?
I'll go ahead and do the inspection, and here's what it's gonna say. It's going to say that the HVAC is fine and nothing needs to be repaired. Because I'm going to hire an HVAC inspector that I know will evaluate this and say, has it been working? Yep, it's been working. And they're gonna sign off and say your system is fine.
Right, and then you're getting into this pickle, where now you have the buyers who it's in their head, something is wrong. And
Exactly,
now you hired your friend's company.
exactly.
Your
And so
friend's
like, you
company
don't
said
want
it's
me to do
fine.
it.
Right.
You wanna do it.
Right. you
Because if
wanna have
I
that
do it,
honesty.
you're not gonna get the
Mhm.
opinion you want. You're gonna
Right.
get a fake opinion, whether it's a good opinion or not.
Right, that's just when you have to set that, now you're setting an expectation with the other agent
Right.
and saying like, hey, this is what you're gonna have to do. If you set that on us, I mean, I'll put on stuff like that, like, hey, we had it tuned up. But it actually will be tuned up.
All right.
Like, we will actually he cleaned it up a little bit. We changed the filters and we made it, it's a tune-up, whatever that tune-up may be.
You
to make sure
vacuum
that
the system, you put in
they
a
feel
new
good.
filter and you.
Right,
move
so
on.
now I want the buyers to feel good, but they're like, yeah, but they said the condenser was making a noise. Because condensers make noise.
Right, that's their job.
Sometimes they're noisy,
Yeah.
sometimes they're not as noisy. Because this system is smaller and older, doesn't mean that, and there's leaves in it somehow. Okay, cool, we'll clean those out. It's still noisy, but not as noisy.
Yeah, right.
But what's the threshold for noisy?
Yeah.
So now you're just getting into this tit for tat. So it makes things much more difficult and challenging to overcome. So in certain conversations, if you're gonna hire a specialist, make sure that it's a specialist. Make sure it's someone that can actually present a reasonable report. A report that's gonna look professional too, because it has to be something that's gonna go across your seller's eyes, the buyer's agent's eyes, and the buyer's eyes. And so if it looks like it was just someone that took a picture and sent an email or a text and you took a screenshot, that doesn't look professional, and that can come back on you. So make sure things are done in a professional, orderly manner. Be careful when you get an inspection notice response. An inspection notice response where you put in your inspection notice to be done by a licensed professional. And they come back with every single thing that they're gonna do, and they've listed it out and they've typed it in their verbiage.
Mhm.
It's not your verbiage, it's theirs. And it doesn't say licensed professional. Guess who's doing the work?
Homeowner.
The homeowner's gonna do the work and they're gonna do a shitty job because they're a computer programmer.
Yep.
And they don't know how to fill in a gap that's in the foundation. But now they're gonna figure it out by YouTube and getting a caulk gun from Lowe's. And it's gonna look like crap, but they did it and you signed it because it said they were gonna do the repair. but it doesn't say it's gotta be done by a licensed professional now. And so when that ends up happening and you get this home receipt from Lowe's and saying what the material is, and don't worry, we'll leave you the rest of the stuff that's in the caulk gun. Cool, I mean, you're getting stuck with that now.
Yeah.
That's, and also now that falls back on you.
I had that happen with a buyer of mine that, you know, I recommended that we have it be done by a licensed professional. And that we hire the person and just put in our inspection notice that we are going to hire this contractor to do this job. And he said, no, we'll let them do it, just have them do it. I said, I think it's smart because if they do it, the homeowner's gonna end up doing it. It's gonna be a junky job. And he said, I think it'll be fine. I said, okay, I just want you to know, I'm recommending that we don't do this. Please don't be upset with me when it's done by the homeowner and you don't like the look of it. Sure enough, the homeowner filled in the gaps in the siding with clear caulk.
Yeah.
And then said, there you go, all of the holes are filled in.
Fixed.
Problem
You're
solved.
welcome. Got it done. It's like, well, but that's not what I was talking about. That's not what I meant. Nobody knows what you meant. You gotta put it on paper.
Yeah.
There's no room for like, well, like in my mind, I know what I wanted that repair to look like, but it doesn't look as good. Well, because you were okay with it not being that good when you signed, when it wasn't a licensed professional. So you can get in some tangled webs. So the other thing, here's the biggest thing. Has anybody ever forgotten to put something in?
Yes,
Did you buy it?
yes.
Yeah, you did. I'm paying for a welding shop today. It's fine.
It's a gallon of bleach. You're not gonna say it that way, but-
No, I'm paying for them to get it done. Cause it's a far drive and that's leverage and it's not worth my time. So, yeah, make sure it's not a roof though. That
Yeah.
would suck. I have gone to a buyer's home in the middle of the night. I say middle of the night because it was 10 o'clock at night and I'm banging on their door because I've been texting them and calling them and saying, it is day 15. Sign this response and they won't sign it. And I'm like, we're asking for a roof. I was like, I ain't paying for that roof. So I'm over at their house. I'm like, in the windows, like, hey, I see your dog's in there, so I know you're home. Like, I'm like, I'm not fucking around, guys. I'm just having a panic attack here.
You're like, here's the paper in my hand, wet
I'm like,
signatures.
why are you not answering your phones? And so they weren't home. That was cool. So I'm like, okay, it's Friday night. They're out drinking. Cool. Who would they be out drinking with? And I found that person. And I was like, hey, are you hanging out with so-and-so? And they're like, yeah, you want to say hi? I'm like, no. I am so mad at them. Tell them to sign their home inspection notice. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And so like 2 minutes later, I see the notifications, dot loop, boom, dot loop, boom. I'm like, "Whew, thank you." Angrily send it to the listing agent. And I'm like, okay, it's 11 o'clock and I'm going to bed. So it's fine, just
Yeah.
make sure. But those people were night owls. So they were like, sleeping during the day, having a great day off. They probably had like a date or something, I bet they were having a great time while I'm sitting in my office fuming. Why aren't you signing? So anyway, I made sure to set that expectation a whole lot different from now on. Like, I'm not kidding when I said sign this. So, and if I say, now I have everyone has like a safe word, right? It's probably a common thing people do. Pineapples, everyone knows that joke, pineapples. If I send my client, I'm like, pineapples, sign this.
Yeah.
Pineapples, call me. First of all, it's kind of funny, breaks a little, I'm not kidding, I do this.
I'm thinking
Like,
it's a
I'm just
great
making
idea,
sure,
actually.
I'm not messing around. I do stuff like this with certain clients. Like my clients that are like in their 80s.
They're not gonna get it, yeah.
No, and they'll just be like, what is, no, not gonna explain it. Please don't Google it. So, because I don't want them to Google, what is a safe word? Woo.
Yeah.
Not good, not good. So. I don't know why I get asked to do Chinese.
She's gone.
You're so entertaining.
Thanks. But I'll like make a point, like, I'm not kidding, like, you need to, this is something like, I make things lighthearted, I make things jokey, but I need you to call me. So answer your fucking phone. I used to work for Greene County. So they have a really large jail facility. And when COs are working, they don't have their phones on them. And so I know that during a certain time of like on their shift, it's very unlikely I will get in touch with them. I know what their shifts are, so when that shift, I'm like, I know you're getting off right now. I know your ass is off work right now. You're walking out to your car and,
Sign
yeah. Okay, cool. You're probably out of the self place now. Great.
We're giving you 15 minutes to get through security and back out to the parking lot.
Oh, I know it takes them like 5 because they're hauling ass home. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna give you a call now. Okay, I think that's all I have.
That's good.
You guys
That's good
have
stuff.
any other questions or has anybody come across something in inspection that they,
I have some more questions. So when it comes to like the inspection or the inspector's duties, like what if you find, this happened to me, what if you find something that you feel like the inspector should have caught,
Mhm.
but didn't until after closing, and then you see that? Is that something that is better for home warranty to take up, or do you go back to the inspector and say, hey, this is a big problem and you missed it?
All depends on what it is. Any home inspector will also have E&O insurance.
Yeah.
E&O insurance is not cheap and they don't want to use it. But if it's a big oopsie, then that's why they have it. I had a home inspector not find termites. And it was actually pretty obvious. Like he should have found it because he was the trained professional.
Yeah.
And didn't. And so I sent a picture and I was like, hey, this is what we got going on. He was like, cool, let me know who you're having come out. I'll pay the bill. And that was the easy conversation, but that was also with a home inspector I had a relationship with. I give him a lot of business, so it was not that painful for him to have to do something like that. And granted, it was only a $400 fix, but that's $400 out of his pocket.
Yeah.
You know, his home inspection, so he's out because he missed that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, those are things, it all just depends on what was the item that should have been
We had
found.
2 things. One of them was the floor by the back door was rotted out.
Okay.
They said, the inspector said he had gone into the crawl space. We even had a termite inspector. Neither one of them caught it. So like the back corner and underneath the door and then the stairs going out was all like about to fall in.
Mhm.
And then the other one was a roof leak that of course, unless it was raining,
Yeah,
couldn't tell that one. But the
Yeah,
first
'cause-
one was
so
one
all
of
of
those
those
that
are-
2 people missed.
because now you're talking about this is up for interpretation.
Uh-huh.
So, and then who's really at fault? The person that should have been going to, from corner to corner along the wall, the termite guy? Who's at fault?
Right.
The home inspector is a general home inspector where he's like, okay, I don't see anything, looking up. Is he gonna go corner to corner? The hope is yes.
Yeah.
Is that a home inspector that you're gonna use again?
Oh, no, we didn't.
Yeah.
After those 2, no, we were
You're
done.
gonna have to go through a couple home inspectors. I have. I still love my first home inspector. I love him. But there were some things that he was missing. Some things that he was missing, so I can't use him. Because I have repeat clients that if they were to find out now that I'm continuing to use him, how's that gonna make them feel when they realize that he missed things that were pretty decent? So even though I love and adore him and I wanna continue to use him, I can't. So it's, because that's not good for my business. And would I have him after all of those mistakes? Would I have him inspect my next home? No. So if it's someone that you don't want to have inspect your next home, don't hire him. Don't hire him for your clients. Because I can go into my buyer's consultations and say, when you ask me for someone that I recommend, I will only recommend people to you that I would use myself.
Now, I don't know, because I've handled it in the wrong way.
We all have. Don't we
Uh,
have classes?
When I've had a buyer come to me, I'm on the sell side, and the buyer's agent says, we're using this inspector who I've had terrible stuff. They've missed things, they're full of opinions, it's, in my opinion, one of the worst inspectors out there, and they're like, this is the guy we're using. And I have said, you can use them because I can't tell you who you can and can't use, but I want you to know that I have a bias against them because I feel like they use too many opinions in the last few inspections that I've gotten from this company. They've missed some significant things or given me things that are, when we have a specialist review them, are not issues. They're making up stuff and scaring off clients. So I'm not a big fan of this company. Feel free to use them. But I don't like them.
This tastes horrible. Try it.
Right. But they've already come to me and said they're planning on using this. And I'm like, I can't tell you not to.
Right.
You've just
I
told me they're your best friend.
Okay, or like I've done stuff where in the any buyer's consultation, like how we have the disclosure form of the affiliated
Yeah.
referral business disclosure. I've like gone up with the mouse and I'm like, so this is a company that you could use. But I don't.
Yeah.
Moving on. you know?
Well, and some of the, if they're my buyers, it's a lot easier, but if they're somebody else's buyers
Yeah,
and
well, you
they,
have no control over.
there's no control, but at the same time, I want them to know that like, if you're gonna use them, please ask them for no opinions in their
Mhm.
report. I want facts
And facts.
and facts only.
Mhm.
And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, again,
know.
it's all about setting expectations, because any negotiation is gonna be based on, the ease of negotiation is gonna be based on the expectations that were set. Whether they were set by you or someone else,
Mhm.
that is the expectation that is set. And so that's gonna make your life easier or harder. There's always ways to get things done. And 90% of the time, when a deal is falling through, it's because of egos.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's egos. It's not whether or not this house is actually a good fit or not a good fit. It's just, is it the principle of the matter?
Right.
Is it the point? That's not the point. You know, I had $2,000 of repairs in mind and they're asking for 7,000. Well, is it $7,000 or is it the deal? The problem is not $7,000. The problem is 5,000. So let's try and figure out $5,000. If you don't get this deal, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna lose $5,000 when we have to do the next price reduction. Because now it has a fall through because of inspections,
Right.
not, no, fell through, no fault due to the seller. Okay, sure.
Right.
So when did it
We
fall
did
through?
that.
And you're like calculating the days, and you're like, that's during the inspection period and that's before the appraisal.
Mhm.
So no fault to the seller.
Right.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, the negotiations, this figuring out your like, how you negotiate with people. That is what's gonna really carry anybody through with inspections. But even if you have good relationships with people, then half the battle is won.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, there are some agents that I've heard horror stories about working with. And then I work with them and I'm like, they're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a little particular. Some of them are strange. Some of them I definitely don't want to work with again. But there's some that I'm like, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I'm gonna dig my heels in because it's the point, then I'm not doing the best job for my client. So, you know, part of like going from law enforcement to being a cop, that it made this job and negotiation, to me, there's so many things that are just so easy and people get so worked up over. At the end of the day, no one's life is in danger, hopefully. No one's going to jail, hopefully. We've had some transactions that were kind of close. One just recently. You know what I'm talking about. But like, no one's gonna die over this. So just do the right thing. And if you've got clients that you know are gonna be really tough to work with, then it is your job to carry the deal through or fire the client. Sometimes we should have fired clients. So if it's too hard to get worked out, it's probably not gonna end up happening. So, cool,
Good stuff.
dismissed.
Thank
Thank
you.
Kids stop recording on that.
Oh,
Should be on the iPad, I think.
It's stop video.
Yeah, no, stop recording. It's still recording.
What if I just say leave?
Try that.